Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of YMA Matt Chat. And we are here today to talk about attitude. And we're super excited to have both Coach Les and Mr. Yarwood here to have this conversation. Both of us are what I call super attitude people. And we are going to talk and dive into a conversation for the next half hour about 10 ideas and 10 fundamental aspects of attitude. And I'm just going to kind of start off with what Mr. Yarwood shared right out of the chute here. Attitude is a fundamental aspect of martial arts, shaping not only how students approach their training, but also how they carry themselves in everyday life outside of the studio. A martial artist's attitude reflects discipline, respect, humility, and perseverance. And now we're going to talk about we're going to emphasize and look at the development of 10 specific areas of attitude in martial arts. Over to you, Mr. Yarwood.
So for us in our training, we say what we have is a black belt attitude, meaning it's always, obviously we're not going to always be positive. That's impossible to do. But our goal is to always push for the way you carry yourself is the way you're always going to be. So when we walk in that door, I tell them, if you're having a bad day, leave it outside. When you come into our dojo, you change to your black belt attitude, you get upbeat, you're friendly, you're respectful, all these elements of what we do come out of you, right? You go and train, if you're an instructor, you help teach, whatever it is you're doing. And when you're done with classes and you go back out that door, if you want to go back to that old bad attitude that you had before you came in, you're certainly welcome to it. But the odds are pretty good that you're not going to want to, because when you come in, our environment helps to change how you're feeling and what you're doing and how you're responding and how you're acting and how you're treating other people. And like I said, black belt attitude is the number one thing that drives the rest of everything that you're going to do in your training, in your teaching, in your relationships, all that other stuff. And people reflect your attitude back to you. So if you come in and you're angry and mad and upset and stomping your feet, everybody else is affected by that around you. Just like if you're in a great mood and bubbly and whatever, it affects people. So we really push that attitude piece, that it's the number one thing that drives everything else that you're getting ready to do. And it's important so important that I make sure, as the head instructor, the chief instructor, the person that everybody else reflects off of, I have to have that attitude as well. And if I don't have it, it affects the rest of the school. And it's a vital component to all of our training.
For me, that whole thing, right, is I look at, as for those of you that know me as a business coach, I'm all about integrity. I call myself an integrity coach. And the way that is implied for me is honoring your word, not necessarily keeping it, and keeping an empowering conversation for possibility alive and real. And what I look at is there's no possibility in negativity. There's no possibility in the poop that life throws at you, other than maybe perhaps manure is very good for putting in soil, right? And putting nutrients back into soil. So yeah, there's some great uses, and taking buffalo chips, they're good for burning and creating energy that way. So yes, there is some good use for poop. As far as a poopy attitude, it doesn't drive anything forward. And what it does is it clouds the future, it clouds the present, and it's all driven by the past. So if you're somebody that's committed to a different future, committed to transforming something, anytime you bring poop into the conversation, it's bringing something from the past. Therefore, you are going to relive whatever it is over and over and over again. And how is that? We're about to step into the first conversation here, respect for others. I'm going to even go one step further and say, what about respect for yourself first,
Definitely.
foremost, and then going from there? I remember the saying, and maybe I've got it screwed up, but it's like, hey, doctor, heal thyself first. When you're in an airplane and the gas and the oxygen masks come down, they specifically say, mothers, fathers, put yours on first before you put your kids on. And people go, oh, that's crazy. Why would you put your kids on? Because you got to be focused and mentally alert yourself to do and look after other people. So that's my 2 cents to get us started. Over to you, Mr. Yarwood.
Definitely. So attitude, if you're one of those people who's always cranky and mad and yelling and just walking around with a stomp attitude, people eventually don't want to be around you. You're not going to have any positive effect on anything you're trying to do. It's hard to have a team leader who's always mad and cranky and yelling at people. Eventually people don't want to work for them. People don't want to train with you. People don't want to be around you. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to have conversations with you. But it's important that you have the good attitude first, like we talked about, right? Because that will spread. And when you have a good attitude, people are more likely to want to be around you. Like, that guy's always happy and bubbly and positive. And at some point, obviously, it can get a little annoying if you're way over the top with it. But it's just a way that you're going to get more out of the people around you by having a good attitude with them. If you have the respect for yourself to have a good attitude, then you start to have better respect for other people. Because if you are, an angry person who's always negative, you're not even respecting those people that are around you either, because you're creating all kinds of cloudiness for them, and that's going to transcend to them, and then they're going to take it to where they go, and then affect those people, and then go on to the next person, and it creates this ripple effect, right? The bad attitude stuff is a huge negative that creates all kinds of problems for other people. When we have a good attitude, the way we talk to people. So when our kids come in the school, the first thing they do is bow at the door, and they say the current life skill, right? We want them to say it with a smile on their face, right? If you come in all just like integrity, right? It sends an immediate message that, all right, we got a problem, right? And if I see that, I immediately address it. I mean, it doesn't get any further than the threshold of the school, because I don't want that in here. I don't want that cloud in here, right? It's bad enough outside the dojo. I don't want it coming into the dojo too. So it's addressed immediately. And all of our other instructors feel the same way. It's like, we just don't want it in our school, right? You're disrespecting your friend, you're disrespecting your other students, you're disrespecting the school, your instructors, everything. So it's something that I don't want to say we don't tolerate it, but we don't tolerate it. It's nipped in the bud immediately. As soon as we recognize it, it's taken care of. And like I say, if you want it when you go back out, go ahead. You can have it, but don't bring it in here.
The next is humility, right? One of the next pieces of attitude is the humility. And, that's the one thing for me that I've always enjoyed about the 2 places that I've done martial arts is the humbleness of the leaders and the humility that they have and that they teach. And I think it demonstrates something, and it's something that allows you to take that skill at being humble out into life. with everything. And I'll use myself as an example. People go, "Oh my gosh, you're a sommelier? Oh, wow. You know a lot about wine." And I look at people and I go, "Well, I'd like you to consider that I actually don't know very much about wine. What I do know a lot about is how much I don't know. And I learn more and more how much I don't know." And people go, "Well, you answer all my questions." I said, "Yeah, because I now have an access to the knowledge of how to find answers in the wine world. That's it. It's like knowing how to use, and which we don't use anymore, but in the libraries, you used to walk up and they had the index cards that you would find and look for alphabetically. I've learned how to use that in the wine world. Now it's called Google. Right? You can type it in there, but it's still, and I'm always willing to learn something new. And I think the epitome of that is in martial arts. And I don't think Mr. Yarwood will bring this up, but I love bringing it up because it's where we share a common view. When you get your black belt, your level 1 first degree black belt, it's like, okay, now you're ready to learn Taekwondo. Like now you've proved that you know the basics to now begin to learn the art. And I look at that and it's so true. And there are so many businesses where you can bring that same philosophy to. I've worked in the restaurant business for over 40 years. And I can tell you, it's like somebody has taught me what a paring knife is. They've taught me what a chef knife is. They've taught me what a bread knife is, a fillet knife. All of these different knives. Now that's how it occurs for me in martial arts. It's like each of the belts. Like I started with just a regular chef's knife. Then I learned these other knives, i.e., I got a different belt and I leveled up and got the next one once I was proficient, not an expert, but proficient with the first knife. Now all of a sudden I've got a whole roll of knives that I know how to use and keep sharp. Now I can learn how to be a chef. Now I can learn how to be a cook because I now know how to use the knives. That's the same premise for me being in martial arts. Over to you, Mr. Yoward.
Yeah, you think about it, all of those are tools, right? Like if you're a mechanic, you have to have all these tools and learn how to use all these tools before you can actually get to start working on vehicles. Right? If you don't know how to do anything, those tools are useless to you, right? So you take all the belts and you learn all the drills and all the techniques and all the kicks and blocks and strikes and stances and reverses and all that stuff, right? And then you get to unfortunately I see a lot. They earn their first degree black belt and then they quit. It's like you haven't even started yet. You have a box full of tools and you don't know how to use them. Right? So it doesn't make sense to me. Like people that when we talk about goal setting with them, right? And having a great attitude about, yeah, I'm going to earn my first degree black belt. That's great. But what do you get there and then you quit? You didn't actually learn anything about what it is you practiced for the last 4 years. So it's like going to football practice every day for 4 years and then game time you quit. I'm done. Like it doesn't make sense, right? So teaching the understanding of attitude in your training and having the humility to know that you don't know everything. I've been doing this for 16 years, and every time I up my rank or train with my grandmaster or train with my instructor, I realize how much I don't know. I found the more I learn about it, the more there is to learn about it. Right? I got to 5th degree black belt and I opened that box and went, oh my, what? I thought I knew a lot of stuff. Now there's all these other things that I get to learn that I had no idea even existed, right? And it's that understanding that when you when you think you know everything, you don't know anything, because somebody else comes in and goes, oh yeah, well, what about this? What about this? Here's another this. Here's another that. And you're just like, it just keeps going, right? One of our we have some sayings that I've really kind of adhered to that kind of keep me going. There's two of them. One of them we've kind of touched on both of them already. One of them was teach yourself first, right? Teach yourself first. And when you learn all the things that you are learning, all those things that you need to learn, then you can start to teach other people, right? As an instructor, if I don't know my material, I'm worthless to my students. If I don't know the things that I'm going to teach them, then how do I teach them anything? So I have to learn all those things first. I have to learn all the techniques, all the nuances of all the techniques, all the nuances of the nuances. I mean, I need to know all these things before I can even start to address the fact that I'm going to tell somebody else how to do it, right? And then the other one is there's always more to learn. No matter what you think you know, you don't know. I can find a dozen other things almost immediately that you don't know about that I do, just because I've experienced it all and I've added all those things to my toolbox. So having the humility to understand that we don't know everything is a huge part of having a great attitude about it.
And I think in that place of humility, right, something happens, I believe, to you as a person that's learning when you suddenly go and when you suddenly admit and realize, wow, I'm at the beginning of the journey. I haven't gotten anywhere. And then you realize also there's nowhere to get. You're already there. It's now how to take where you're at and continue to level, and I'm going to say it, level up, right? Because it really is. And it's that perseverance, which is our third conversation in attitude, that perseverance where you face a challenge, you face mistakes, and you face setbacks regularly, i.e., you get injured and it sets you back 6 months. You run up not being able to do a certain move, and you try and you try and you try and you try and you try, and you're like, wait a minute, I'm doing all this trying. And then along comes Mr. Yarwood and says, here's a technique to put in between where you were, where you're headed. Put this in there, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, if I do that, it makes doing what I was intending to do work. And you look and you go, wow, thanks. And it's like, yep, because now I know that that you can't get to where I want you to go. And you know that now there's a place where I can give you the little bridge, because you can understand how the bridge works to get from A to B. But before you attempted to get to B, there's no way I could give you the little bridge, because it would just be another in the way.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, perseverance is a huge thing. If you have a bad attitude, you won't have perseverance. You're going to quit every time. Oh, this sucks. I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm terrible at this. Everybody says it just builds on itself, and then you immediately quit because your attitude says, doesn't matter. I'm never going to get there anyway, so why bother, right? If you have a positive attitude about it, like we just talked about, it's like you keep going, you keep going, you keep going, you keep working at it. Suddenly something happens. Somebody comes in and says, hey, try this. And you go, oh. And now you're like, oh, now you're rejuvenated. Your attitude is back again. And then you keep moving forward, right? But if you have that negative attitude every time an obstacle gets in your way, quit. And you'll never get anywhere. You'll never accomplish what you're trying to accomplish if you're with your bad attitude and your quitting attitude, as we call it, right? If all you ever do is quit, you're never going to figure anything out. You're never going to finish anything. You're never going to accomplish anything. You're just doing a lot of different things that don't get you anywhere.
And I think that takes us into the next two attitudes: discipline and self-control, and focus and mental fortitude. Both are primary pillars to perseverance.
For sure.
And, when you look at what is a disciplined attitude, it's that piece where, in respecting yourself, you don't get frustrated and lose control. You realize that every single step is a journey, and in making that step, there may be walls that require being broken down. By learning that the wall is there first and having the discipline to stay the course and the self-control to not run away when it becomes difficult.
The easiest way, I think, if you really want to mess with people, the easiest way to get them to quit is to create a bad attitude. Tell them, you'll never do it anyway, so you might as well just stop, right? Start to get into their brain about how they're not able to do something. It's just as powerful as the positive. Say, you know what? You keep going. You're going to figure it out. Keep going. You're going to figure it out. And having the discipline and to be able to just fight through adversity, to know that adversity is what's making you stronger. It's what's building you up. If you don't fight through that, if you don't learn how to get through adversity, it's going to stop you every time, because you don't know what's on the other side, right? And once you get to that other side, you're going to realize, oh man, how did I get here? What was the reason? And you look back and then you see that the attitude that you had was like, all right, I don't want to quit. I want to persevere. I want to have that discipline to just keep going. And it just starts to build on itself, because now you realize you have this history behind you of all these positive things that you did, all these barriers that you're in your way. And when you look back, it's clear because those barriers are gone. And now you look forward, there's more barriers in front of you. It's like, hey, I got this, right? And that having that like attitude of calm and self-control, right? To be able to say, just take a quick breath. All right, I got this. Versus allowing you to start to get frustrated and upset, and you start to outwardly attack and say, he did this, so I can't do it because he created a problem for me. When you start to blame other people about things, right? Your attitude towards other people changes, and then you start blaming other people for things. You lose sight and lose focus on what it is that you're actually trying to do, and then that bad attitude starts to creep back in again. It's a challenge, but it's a work in progress all the time. It's always happening. It's not something that you don't have, like you said, there's no destination. You're not suddenly get there and go, I made it. You get there and go, oh man, there's all kinds of more stuff I get to do now. And that's a different thing, right? You say there's a difference between, oh man, look at all this stuff I have to do versus all the stuff I get to do. And when you change those two words, it changes how you look at things. It's that mental fortitude in your head that says, all right, what's my next challenge? Let's go.
And I think that all of these things, right, relate to how do you approach life? Do you approach schoolwork, homework? Do you approach work, and stuff that you deal with at work? Right? I mean, a couple of weeks ago, my wife was so frustrated. She's the CEO of the ice cream shops, and she was so frustrated. She said, we're going to fire everybody and start over. And, I know she was mad. I know she was frustrated. And yet there are people that we have that, given time, given attention, and getting rid of the bad apples, the people that have a bad attitude, the people that have no self-control, the people that don't care, the people that mom and dad pay for everything, right? So their money, they don't care if they make money, right? They really don't. It's like, okay,
Yep.
well, I'm here because my mom and dad want me to have a job. They want me to learn.
Yeah, they want me versus I want me.
So it really is a place where we look at how does all of this come together. And you and I were talking about fossil fuels earlier. It's like, how is a diamond made? Right? A diamond is made the same way oil is made
Pressure.
and coal is made. It just continues to be put under pressure.
Yep.
Until it's squeezed into this crystal that had all of the impurities and stuff squeezed out of it, is the way I kind of like to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like it's now come to this final resting place of being pure and clear. So, yeah, I'm focus and mental fortitude. Woo! That whole piece.
Yep.
And we deal so much today with so much stimulus from these things, iPads,
Yes.
phones. And yet, when you take those away and you fill the space that is there with tools to increase who you are as a person, who you are as a gift to the human race, you might start to see, you would start to see, and you will start to see the opportunities that being put under pressure, being put in a place where you can translate this into this. And then you can look and see, oh, wow, I did this to this at school. Now I'm doing this to this at home. And wow, I'm doing this to this in business.
Yep. It's amazing. I mean, if we go back to the root of the whole thing, the attitude, how much power it has. It's a switch. It's one or the other. It's good or it's bad, right? Sure, you're going to have kind of variations within those, but either you have a good attitude or you have a bad attitude. And it's kind of cliche, but I remember those old what's it called, successories? They were picture frames, and they had like an eagle, and then they had some goofy saying on it. And one of the sayings I remember, and it had an eagle on it, and it said, you determine your altitude by your attitude, right? So it talked about how far you're going to get based on how you respond and how you act. And it's crazy just how effective switching your attitude up can be, how far you're going to get in life, right? You have the mindset that, hey, it doesn't matter what I get thrown at me, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to figure it out, as opposed to every time something gets thrown at you, oh, why me? How come everybody, blah blah blah. It's little switches in your life change the direction of where you're going.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Woo. Well, this has been a great conversation. I think we're going to, this is a great spot for us to pause and come back next week with the positive and growth mindset, accountability, calmness under pressure, respect for tradition and values, and then ending with service and leadership. So and it's perfect timing, right? We just hit the 30-minute mark.
Yep.
So for me, in covering these 5 things that we've covered: respect for others, humility, perseverance, discipline and self-control, focus, and mental fortitude, those 5 things I think are a good place for us to play this week and look and see, how are we creating this game? How are we setting ourselves up? What's the conversations we're having, both internally and externally? And how do we take it and clean it up? If cleaning up is what's wanted and needed, it will be, my goodness. I think there's a tenacity that's available by us looking at these 5 points that'll give us not only the strength and fortitude, i.e. mental fortitude, but it'll also give us the tools to step when stepping is not easy. Over to you for your final thoughts, Mr.
Yes, sir. Like I said, attitude is where it all starts. How you decide to feel, to respond, to act towards yourself and towards others dictates everything else that you do. It's going to set the direction for your day, for your week, for your life. And, we're not, like I said, we're not always going to be happy. We're always going to be jolly and all that stuff. But how you respond to that adversity and how you focus your attitude on what you're going to do is going to basically set where you're going to go. It's going to set that path for you. So good attitudes are black belt attitude, I guess we say, is a big deal. So
yeah, I like it. I like it. All right. And with that, here we go.